welcome to Kitchen Basics 101, where I teach you the bare bone basics if you've never cooked a day in your life from the perspective of a mom. My favorite thing is pasta. Today I'm gonna make a pasta with bacon, peas, and cream sauce. You could totally do this with like pancetta or any other type of meat like this. I just happen to have 2 bacon slices that they sliced way too thick, so I'm going to use those. But you can use whatever you want. This is just to give it a little bit of like a fatty, salty bite. So I'm gonna try to cut it into like thin little strips like you would find a pancetta. And if you saw, I stacked them. I cut it in half and then I stacked it on top of itself. So that just cuts my cuts in half, right? I don't have to cut as much. The colder this meat is, the easier it will be to cut. Like if it's slightly frozen or a little bit cold, and I agree with that. The only issue is we're gonna brown this up. And so we want this meat to be as close to room temperature as possible to get a nice like crispiness on the outside, which is what we're looking for. And we're gonna render out the fat. But you could easily get it cold or semi-frozen, slice it up, and then let it sit out for a half hour just to come to temperature. All right, we got all our little pieces. I'm gonna put this into a cold pan. And let me cut up the other one. There's no magic measurement here for how much. You just wanna get some salty fattiness. I just happen to have 2 thick pieces of bacon, so that's what I'm gonna use. You can use any pasta you want. I'm gonna use rigatoni, because that's what I have in the pantry. I get so many questions about timing. Like, how do I time out the meal to make sure everything comes out at the right times? And my number 1 tip is to prepare ahead of time. So they call it mise en place, like everything in its place. So you just saw me chop up the bacon, put it in a cold pan. I'm getting out the rigatoni. I'm gonna put a pot of water on to boil because that's gonna take the longest. You don't have to put the pasta in right away. I'm gonna wait to put the pasta in until I start making the sauce. But I'm gonna put the pot of water on. I'm gonna get my peas out. I'm gonna shred my cheese. So I'm gonna like prep everything first. We're gonna prep some Parmesan cheese. This is a hard cheese, so I'm gonna use the grater with the smallest holes because that's the one for hard cheese. You would use the bigger hole grater for like cheddar, Gouda, like soft cheeses. And my number 1 tip for using this grater is just don't push too hard. If you push hard, it'll get all clogged up here in the drum. So you just want to go slow. And you know, you measure cheese with your heart. Like, we'll see how much we end up putting in. I have all my ingredients prepped. Now I'm putting the bacon that we cut up. It was in this nice cold pan. I'm putting it on the heat. I'm going to start on medium high. And I'm just gonna let things start to get sizzling and going. I wanna crisp up the bacon, but we also want it to render out all this good glossy fat because that's gonna add delicious flavor, and we're gonna cook our garlic in that fat, and it's gonna make our cream sauce taste delicious. I'm bringing my water up to the boil, but I haven't put my noodles in yet because this can take some time to render out this fat. So I wanna make sure this is done before I put the noodles in because I want my sauce to be pretty much together before I add the pasta. My hamburger video, a lot of people were talking about the temperature that you cook at. And first of all, every stovetop is different, so I can't give you a magical temperature for your stovetop. It's not the same as the oven where you can set it to a temperature, but also it depends on how things are cooking. So for instance, I had started this on high to get things going, but now that everything's going, I've turned it down to like medium high because I don't want to burn the bacon. I want to render out as much of the fat as I can and get it nice and crispy. Everybody's perfectly crisp. I'm gonna take it out carefully. Turn the heat off because my pan is good and hot, but I'm probably gonna turn it on low heat. I'm gonna put in a couple of cloves of garlic. This is the most amazing invention ever. This is crushed garlic that is frozen. I absolutely love it. It's just like fresh garlic, but it's already grated for you. So I'm just gonna saute that in the bacon fat. Like I said, I don't even have my heat on because my pan is so hot. I'm gonna saute that in the bacon fat just for a minute. You don't want it to burn, just until it becomes really fragrant. Beautiful and fragrant. Now I'm gonna use some heavy cream. Eyeball it, maybe like a cup of heavy cream, maybe 2 cups. But this is a cream sauce after all. We're gonna put peas and the bacon back in here. Probably like one of these small, I think this is a pint. One of these small containers is probably enough. We're gonna turn our heat up to medium and we're gonna salt and pepper, and then we're gonna put our pasta in the water for it to start cooking. So not too much salt because we do have the bacon, but a little bit of salt. And I love pepper, so I'm gonna put quite a bit, but this is totally preference. Seasoning is totally personal preference. Okay, I'm gonna generously salt my pasta water. And I'm gonna do rigatoni. This says 12 to 13 minutes. I'll probably do like 11 minutes and check it because we are gonna cook it for a few minutes in the sauce. Just gave it a taste. It already tastes like delicious Alfredo. We're just gonna give it a good stir, and I use a wooden spoon and I scrape the bottom of the pan so there's any of that little bacon crispies that are at the bottom. We get them all up into our sauce. We're just gonna let this simmer. Once I get it up to a simmer, then I'll probably put it on like medium-low heat. Just kind of let all these flavors come together and let the sauce thicken. If you love Italian seasoning, this is a good place. You could put in the Italian blend, you could put in basil, you could put in some seasonings here into your sauce. I'm just gonna stick with garlic and salt and pepper because I know that's delicious. But now that she's been bubbling away for a couple of minutes, I'm gonna add some peas. This is a whole bag of frozen peas that I left out just to get warmed up a little bit. I'm gonna start with a couple of scoops and stir it up and see, you know, how many peas that ends up being. That's a good amount of peas for the amount of sauce we have here. You don't want to overdo it. Our heat's on low. We're gonna put a couple of handfuls of Parmesan cheese in here that you saw I grated earlier. You don't want your heat to be too high when you're adding cheese. You don't want to burn the cheese. You want to very delicately melt the cheese. You don't want to break it. So low heat or even off the heat is the right heat for getting your cheese in there. There's plenty of residual heat here in the sauce to melt up our Parmesan. Oh, look at how it's thickened it up. If you want it more thick, more cheesy, add more cheese. Our pasta's about to beep that it's done. And this is an important step. We're gonna transfer the pasta directly from the pot into this pan because we wanna get some pasta water in here to bring our sauce together. Pasta water has all this starch in it. It just helps bring your whole sauce together. The pasta, that should be a little al dente, and we're just gonna put it directly from the pot so that we don't lose any of this pasta water in case we need it. And we're always gonna get a little bit when we're transferring it over into the sauce. Once you get it all transferred over, then you're gonna give it a toss and look to see like how your consistency is and see if you need to add more pasta water. Put a small ladle full of the pasta water in here just so we can get everything creamy and tightened up and beautiful. Okay, and you're just gonna let this simmer all together for a couple of minutes. Put our bacon back in that we made earlier. We don't want it to get soggy, so we'll put it in right here at the end. Just wanna toss it and cook it a couple minutes until it becomes this thick, luscious beauty. I put a little squeeze of lemon juice at the end. It needs that pop of acidity, and voila. Bacon, peas, cream pasta. So delicious. One of my favorites. 10 out of 10.